Okay, here in lesson 3.3, we're going to talk all about buying cars or leasing cars for that matter. So at the end of this module, you will be able to make good decisions about buying a car. You'll understand the true cost of ownership for a car, which is usually much more than people think. And we'll try to teach you how to save money on car maintenance and insurance. So first of all, you got to realize cars are very expensive. They're probably the second most expensive thing that you'll ever purchase for most Americans, your house being number one if you buy a house. So they not only are expensive, but they lose their value very quickly. A lot of people think of cars as an investment or something really cool to have. They are an expense and they do not give you great return on your investment. If you need a car, great, you got to have one, but buy them smartly. It must be maintained. They got to be stored. You got to insure them. You got to fuel them up. So all these things are reasons why cars are more expensive than people think they are. So maintenance, parking, insurance, gas, all of these things cost money. So a lot of people, especially in big cities where parking is very expensive and even having a garage is very expensive, a lot of people choose not to have cars. Okay, so at the end of all that, they have very limited resale value in most cases. That may be changing a little bit, but cars are an expense. Got to remember that. Not only are they expensive, but they don't give you a great return on your investment. They're not really an investment. Okay, it's just money down the drain for something that you have to have. Okay, so first question is, do you actually need a car? A lot of people are looking at the car that they can afford, and they have to decide what do you want as opposed to what can you afford. There was a study done recently to talk about the total cost of ownership. They looked at 5 common new cars owned by young Americans, young adults, and they came up with these averages. 5-year cost of ownership was $29,300 over 5 years. So if you divide that by 5 per year, it costs you about $6,000 per year, or $5,860. Divide that by 12 months in a year, and you get almost $500 per month. So the question is, can you spend $500 every month just for owning and maintaining a car? So keep that in mind. They are very expensive. All right. So many people choosing not to own cars these days. One digital trend is that young people, specifically your age, are not buying cars and getting their driver's license. They can go talk to friends on the phone. You can Skype people. You can do FaceTime with people. Don't need to drive to see them as much. All right. People who live in big cities are using this service called Zipcar. Don't know if you've heard of it, but it's you rent a car just for a short period of time and you need to drive it somewhere, whether it's a trip across town or a vacation. You don't even own a car. You just rent one through this Zipcar place. All right. Um, your generation is getting cheaper and cheaper. They say they're being wiser consumers, and so a lot of them are not owning a car. They're just choosing to use Lyft. Maybe you've seen these pink mustaches on cars in big cities. You just call and they show up and they pick you up and take you to your ride. Same thing with Sidecar. Same thing with Uber. You get to just choose where you want to go and how much. They'll tell you exactly how much it's going to cost you. It's different than the old taxi cab service. These things are eating into cab services. So my point is, you may not need a car. So think about it, okay? Especially if you live in a big city with some good mass transit, all right? But if you do need a car, like most Americans do, you got to figure out where to start. Am I going to buy new or used? You got to find out which cars are most reliable. Well, that means checking into their repair history, and you also want to understand mileage and check the resale value. You'd like to have a car when it gets old that it would still have some resale value to somebody else besides yourself. So with a new car, you get some benefits, right? You get a warranty or a lemon law. Don't know if you know about this, but there is a law that protects you against a car having continuous problems if sold by a dealer. Of course, reliability typically should be better for a new car, but not always. I've known people who owned used cars having better luck with their car than somebody who bought new. Clearly, the price is a disadvantage. It's higher for new cars, as you'd expect. And as soon as you drive it off the lot, that old story is true. It drops several $1,000s in value the minute you bought it and drive it off the lot. It's no longer new. It was new for you. Okay. Used cars. First of all, price is a big benefit. You can get them for a lot cheaper because of that immediate depreciation. They're not always fraught with hidden problems because you can buy them certified. They're a little bit more expensive, but if a dealer certifies a car, they've checked it out. They have the service records on it, and you're getting a pretty guaranteed new car with a few problems. Okay, so first of all, you got to establish your needs. You want a two-door, you want a four-door, you want an SUV. What do you want? Is fuel economy important to you, or do you want more style? Because that typically costs money. But you got to do your research, find out what's reliable, find out what the repair history is, and find out which brands hold their value best. The other piece we talked about was you're going to buy it or lease it. Leasing is like renting it, except that you've got a long-term payment, and either way, you've got a down payment. You got monthly payments. We'll talk more about buying or leasing later on. Okay, so when you start shopping, here's a couple websites that would help you. JD Power is an independent reviewer. They review lots of things. Cars are one of them, and they're very thorough. They're easy to use with their online tools. If you do a Google search for JD Power's most reliable 3-year-old cars, well, here's a great place to start. If looking at used cars, get something that's 3 to 5 years old. They've got a whole list of them there for you. So I'm not going to go to these websites, but you certainly can. I strongly recommend that you do. Edmunds.com is a great car place. They are experts in cars, and they give you a step-by-step guideline for how to buy a used car, if that's what you choose to do. They give you detailed tips on how to protect yourself. And one thing about used cars is people are worried about, oh, you'll get all these problems. You can pay $50 to $100 to a mechanic, and they will check that car thoroughly for you. It's not perfect, but they'll give you a lot of information about that car and tell you whether they think it's in good shape or it's a good buy. All right. Speaking of what's a good buy, Kelley Blue Book has for years and years and years, decades, they have been so as I was saying, Kelley Blue Book has been the gold standard. So as I was saying, Kelley Blue Book has for decades been the gold standard in establishing used car and new car values. If you go to kbb.com, this whole site used to be in a small blue book before the internet, and that's why the name comes from. But you look up Kelley Blue Book, and you can list new car, used car. They'll tell you how to rate the condition of the car, whether it's really good, okay, good, fair, poor, and you punch in the mileage, you punch in the year, and it will tell you a lot of details about really establishing clearly what the true market value of that car is. So Kelley Blue Book is a tremendous resource there. All right. Autotrader.com. This is a new one. BP.com. This is a whole new car service where this is a new startup business by a guy out of MIT who bought a lemon, and he decided he was going to change that. Their prices are fixed, no haggling, no negotiation, and they deliver the car to you. So you just go online, you check it out, what you want to buy, and they check it out, and they actually drive it, test drive it, do a thorough inspection, and they take about a 9% commission on the total cost of the car. Okay, so BP, it's a brand new one. All right, Cars.com is a real famous one too. You see ads for them on TV. But one of the ones I want to point out to you is CarMax as well. These guys have locked prices. In other words, there's no haggling. They establish the value of the car. That's what it is. And you go get the car and you look at it. They only take cars with a clean title. In other words, it could not have been in an accident or salvaged. And they will give you a warranty on that car too. So CarMax has really changed the way cars are purchased by individuals. A couple things more to think about. What can you afford? Okay, your parents going to pay for it. You're going to pay for it, or like a lot of people do these days, it's a combination. Your parents come up with a down payment, or you come up with a down payment, and they got to come up, or you got to come up with the rest. So the question is, how much can you save with 1 year's wages if you're trying to get a car payment or a down payment going? So I did a quick calculation here for you. If you work 10 hours per week, $8 an hour over the course of a year, if you saved every penny, 100%, you'd have $4,000. That's a nice down payment for a car. You can get a pretty good car with a $4,000 down. If you work 20 hours per week at minimum wage, that's $8,000 in a year. Now, maybe you won't save 100% of it, but this is the maximum savings you could get if you put all that money towards a down payment. Of course, if you make a little bit more money, $10 per hour, those numbers go up dramatically. If you work if you make $12 per hour and you go 10 hours, 20 hours, look, you can make $12,000 in a year if you work 20 hours a week at $12,000. At $12 per hour, that is. So you can save up significant money. You might even be able to pay for the whole car if you were down here in this bottom row, but these are just things to think about. How much money can you save up for a car? Now, if you wanted to lease the car instead of buying it outright, okay, you still pay an upfront cost, and then you pay a monthly fee to use the car. All right, so leasing and buying, what's this look like? All right, pros and cons. Get a new car if you lease it, get lower monthly payments because you don't own it. You're not really buying the car, you're just kind of renting it. It's an easy transition to make from your existing car to a new one, or from the car you're leasing to getting out of it. Okay, there's a time expiration, and it's a fixed term. You get penalties if there's early termination fees, and you get penalties if you drive it more than the standard mileage. Okay, Obviously, if you damage it, there's fees for that. There's no trade-in value. You just give the car back and the lease is up. Okay. If you buy a car, right, whether it's new car or used, it's new to you. You usually get a warranty. You get the latest features, get top condition. All right. You do pay a high price and you do suffer through instant depreciation, but at least you own something. A lot of people say leasing is the way to go. Other people still buy their cars. You do have higher insurance taxes and fees on buying the car, especially the sales tax when you drive it off the lot. Okay, so things to think about. All right, so that pretty much sums up what we talked about with buying cars. We want to talk about some other costs, namely insurance. First of all, this protects you against financial disasters, right? If you had to make a claim and you had $500 deductible, suppose your car required $1,500 worth of repairs, you would get a check for $1,000 because your deductible was $500. So of the $1,500, they go 1,500 minus 500, and you get a $1,000 check. Now, higher deductible means lower premiums. If you took a $1,000 deductible on your insurance, that means any incident in which you had to make a claim, you pay the first $1,000. The higher deductible, well, that's less money the insurance company has to give you. So you do pay lower premiums or lower fees to the insurance company if you have a high deductible. Clearly, you should know this already. Your insurance rates are greatly affected by your driving record. So you want to avoid tickets. Obviously, you want to avoid accidents. Doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure that out. You just want to keep a clean driving record if you can, and your insurance rates will be better and better with time. Right? Insurance rates are tough on students because students actually have a very high incidence of traffic accidents. Okay, now let's talk about some types of coverage on your insurance. First of all, you got liability. That's if somebody gets hurt. You want to have liability to cover yourself and your passengers and anyone that you might have collided with in a collision. Collision regards repair to your vehicle. Okay, property damage regards repair to other things that your vehicle hit, whether it was a house or a fence or a tree, or maybe took out a stoplight in the city that belongs to the city of Roseville. Okay, you still have to pay property damage. So that's what's different about property damage as opposed to collision. Collision pays for damage to your car. Property damage pays for damage to other people's cars or other people's property, including public agencies like cities. Okay, comprehensive is an interesting one. This one covers theft, it covers damage, it covers things like if a tree falls on your car. Okay, so if this was due to no fault of your own, you still get a check here, but there is a deductible for that too. So if somebody broke in and took the stereo out of your car or took something out of your car, okay, that would usually be covered by comprehensive as long as it was part of the car. Okay, loose items within the car, that'd be covered by your homeowner's insurance or your renter's insurance, hopefully. Medical payments, if somebody was injured and they had to go to the hospital repeatedly, especially they had to stay in the hospital, medical payments insurance should cover that. And a great one to have that's pretty cheap when you get your insurance is that roadside assistance, is where the company will send someone out in case your car won't start or you got a blowout or you have some other problem, and they'll give you assistance to get the car going or to get you towed to a place where you can get it fixed. Okay, so if you drive a car into a building like this, yeah, that'd be an example of property damage here. Don't have to just hit cars. Anything you hit, you're probably going to have to pay for it, or your insurance company is going to have to pay for it, which could make your rates go up. Okay, keep that in mind. Speaking of accidents, what happens if you're in one? What do? Well, get your vehicle out of the traffic area if you can do so safely. Okay, if you cannot, just walk away from the vehicle and leave it there. Hopefully you have some flares, so you have something to put up, especially if you're around a blind corner. You don't want to leave your car out in the middle of the road when someone is going to come screaming up and hit on it, or at least brake or have to, take some dodging maneuvers to avoid hitting your car. Try to get your car off the road if you can do so safely. Somebody can push it with you. If it's not running, just drive it off the road and wait for help. But basically, you want to exchange information with the person with whom you got in the accident in, okay, especially your insurance companies. If you have a chance, take photos. Everybody's got a camera on their phone these days, so take photos, but only if it's safe to do so. All right, and you might think about that before you move the cars off the road, especially if you think the other guy's at fault. Okay, once this happens, you want to talk to your insurance company about what happened, decide whether or not to make a claim. And one big question that I think a lot of teens forget to ask is, what will happen to your premiums if you file this claim? All right, so I wouldn't give them your insurance information right off the bat. You want to find out whether or not it's going to make your premiums go up and whether or not making a claim is worth it. Okay, so keep those things in mind about insurance when you're doing these things. All right. Maintenance of your car, of course, you want to know how regular maintenance is done and how is the service recommended or how often it's recommended. If you're not sure about what the one mechanic is telling you, go get a second opinion. Typically, they don't charge for that, so you should be able to get a couple of opinions for free and maybe learn a little bit about your car on the way. You definitely want to shop for specials. Take your car in for oil changes when it's cheap. You got to learn more about your car, more than just knowing where the engine is. Okay. And you've got to remember, well-maintained cars are safer. They get better mileage, believe it or not. Okay. And they'll typically handle better and retain their value better. And these are all big pluses because nobody wants to get into a car that is all beat up with dogs or kids or something in the back seat tearing it all up or anything like that. You want to take good care of your car so you can hopefully retain some value. Okay, you don't want your cars to end up like this, in a dumpster in the Cash for Clunkers program up a couple years ago. That's probably not coming back, so don't count on it. All right, here's some resources for you. The Edmunds, the Kelley Blue Book, Auto Trader, Cars.com, CarMax, and also don't forget the DMV. This will tell you about your registration fees, which we didn't talk about, but you should understand that you've got all kinds of fees that go into the car registration fees. So keep it in mind. Cars are expensive. Make a good choice when you buy yours.